Being broke is the reason for a lot of problems. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it's the reason for most problems, but it is not the reason you can't have community. And we're not even gonna do the cute little intro today because I wanna have a serious conversation about this. I'm like 26 days into my 30-day series of videos about like hosting and friendships and building community to promote my new book. And without fail on every single video, there are always at least a few comments from people talking about how they can't do X or Y because they don't have money. And we're talking about everything from flea market shopping to stovetop popcorn to washing your sheets once a week. And I want to say a few things about this. First of all, part of the reason that I want to focus so much on doing things in the home is because 90% of the time it is way less expensive than the alternative. Like basically everything from dining out to movies to staying with a friend instead of hotels, like name an activity, it's probably cheaper in the home. Second of all, when you look at communities both in America and globally that have like the strongest social ties and engagement, it's poor communities. There are many reasons for this, but one of the big ones is that the less disposable income you have, the more you have to rely on community. Like not for nothing, but when I was at my absolute brokest, part of the reason I hosted so frequently was because I would do potlucks and the leftovers would be my food for the next few days. But also, while I do believe that there may be some commenters for whom getting a bag of chips and some dip to set out for your friends would totally break their budgets, when you look at how millennials and Gen Z are actually spending their money, that's not what's happening. Millennials and especially Gen Z spend way more money on restaurants, takeout, and pre-made food when compared to other generations, even when adjusting for how much money they actually have. Like even boomers with way more disposable income on average will be going out to restaurants less than a Gen Zer with not nearly as much. And I think there are a lot of reasons for this, like social media and app culture have made it way easier to outsource basically every aspect of our lives, food being a major one of them. And it's also a really aspirational and enjoyable way to spend your money for a generation who may never be able to afford to own a home, but can definitely buy some nice food. But also a lot of it is we've just gotten out of the habit of hosting one another and cooking for one another, or even cooking for ourselves. And while we've completely normalized social behavior that previous generations didn't have, such as charging your friend thousands of dollars for the privilege of being in your wedding, we've totally lost the art of just casually going over to each other's homes. And yes, sometimes it's an issue of space, but often it's not. In fact, statistically, Americans live on average in way larger homes than ever before in history, and yet are inviting people over to them way less. And even leaving all of that aside, most of the core acts of building friendship and community actually have nothing to do with money. Just simply communicating with your friends, taking an interest in them, showing up when you say you will, listening when they talk to you, like that already makes you a better friend than most in this generation. And none of that costs a dime. Anyway, I'm not here to gaslight and pretend like not having a lot of money is not a real problem for younger people. It clearly is. But I am here to say that building strong communities and bringing those communities back into our homes instead of always having to pay to go somewhere is part of the solution to that problem.